All right, so this video is going to take a look at how we explode our assembly, right? So we just took the time to get it all together. Now we actually have to explode it so that we create another view, or in this case, a new configuration. Okay, so it is possible to create configurations on the same part. So for example, this wheel has 4 holes in it. We could have created a configuration where the wheel only has 3 holes in it and still be the same part. So within a single part, we can have multiple configurations. So in the same light, this assembly will have a second configuration, and that configuration will be in the exploded state. All right, so with our assembly all put together, all right, we are going to be in the Assembly tab, and over to the right, we have Exploded View. So I'm going to left-click in Exploded View. Now, once I do that, I'm ready to explode, right? Now, before you start exploding, the one thing you should do is hit the space bar and put it in an appropriate isometric view. Okay, if you don't put it in an isometric view, you're not going to know exactly what the spacing looks like when you put this on paper. Okay, we're preparing this for paper in an isometric view because that's the view that SOLIDWORKS uses to show or explain an exploded state. Okay, so you have to put it in an isometric view to begin. All right, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And basically the way this works is you have to be very careful because SOLIDWORKS will easily kick you out of explode mode. Okay? So you have to pay attention to what's going on the left side here to see if it kicks you out or not, based on any additional clicks or a wrong move or something like that. So how do we explode this? All right, I'm going to left click once, and that will highlight my mount plate, and then it gives me arrows that I can then grab, and it highlights, and I can move it in that particular direction. So I can grab it in the Z, I can move it in the Y, I can move it in the X direction. So in this case, I'm going to grab the Y arrowhead, left click and hold, and drag upwards. Let go. Okay. After that, I'm going to grab the left. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. See, it likes to do weird things. I'm going to Control Z, undo. And let's try this again. I'm going to left click. Nope. Control Z. Okay, let me left click out in space. That doesn't do anything. Let me undo. Try it one more time. Pull this up. I'm not going to move my mouse. I'm going to right click. That's better. Okay, so we got to make sure that after each step we right click and don't move our mouse. So I'm going to left click to select my side mount, and I want to move it in the negative Z direction. So I'm going to left click on the Z arrowhead, and I'm going to move it out. I'm not going to move my mouse, and I'm going to right click. Okay. Then I'm going to take the axle, and same thing. Move the Z axis in the negative direction, and I want to space it so there's I'm right click. I'm going to space it so there's a little bit of a gap in between each item. Then the wheel. Move it in the negative Z, making sure that there's a little bit of space. Right click to confirm. Okay, there's a little bit of space between here and the edge. I'm going to move this in a positive Z. Okay, I know it's cutting through that side plate. That's okay. I'm going to right click to confirm, and then select that side mount plate and move it in a positive Z to make sure that it's away from everything else. And right click Well, this time I'm getting this kind of a box because I moved my mouse. So I'm just going to click OK. All right. What happened now is it kicked me out. Okay, I can tell by looking at this. When it kicks you out and you try to go back into the exploded view, you're basically going to be creating a new configuration. All right, so this is kind of where you have to be careful. And the way to remedy this, and I'm almost 100% good with this. I would like to move my side plate maybe back over and then up a little bit. But this is looking pretty decent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the feature management tree, and there's a series of little tabs that we haven't really played around with before. And the third tab is the configuration manager. If I click on the configuration manager, we have my assembly configuration and then a default. If I hit the drop down for default, it gives me the exploded view configuration. Okay, a double left click on exploded view brings my configuration back to the assembly view. If I double left click on the gray exploded view 1, then it explodes it based on the steps that I took to explode. So one more time, double left click brings it together, double left click in the same spot, gives me the exploded view. If I want to change a particular step in this view, I need to right click exploded view 1 and go to edit feature. And at that point, I can go back into the steps or I can make any adjustments. So I'm going to left click, bring this up, right click, oops, bring it up, right click, select it again, bring it over, right click. Maybe I'll bring it up a little bit more, right click, and that's where I'm happy. Okay, so I'm going to green check. I can green check in my workspace, or I can green check at the assembly view level, and I'm going to save my assembly file. Okay, go back to my feature management tree. Now, by saving the file with the exploded view, I have now two configurations. Okay, and now just like starting a regular drawing detail, I'm going to go up to New, make drawing from part or assembly, just like we did with regular parts. Telling me about the templates, I'm going to hit OK. B, landscape. Okay, and in my palette view, we can see that there is the assembled view, right? The assembly front, the right, the top, the bottom, isometric views, a current view, and an isometric exploded view in my isometric setting. Okay, so I'm going to use the isometric assembled view, pull that out. I'll pull it out right here. I'm going to go back into my view palette and choose the exploded isometric view and let go. And at this point, I'm going to change the scale of the sheet. All right, so I'm going to left click an empty space. Shortcut version is down at the very bottom. And I'm going to change this to 1:2. See how big it gets. 1:1 maybe. Okay, might be a little cramped at 1:1. Let's see, make sure I grab the right box. Okay, so I think with the amount of parts, this might work out well. I want to, again, make sure that all of these little origin points are hidden. So I'm going to click on the little eyeball and select View Origins and turn that off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the isometric view, and I'm going to change it to maybe the colored version or the yeah, I'll change it to the colored version just to make a big difference, a noticeable difference between the two files. Okay, the exploded assembly view should always be in a line drawing or the hidden line invisible. All right, so this is a good view. It should never be colored, all right, because we want to make sure that we see all the different parts. So next step is to create balloons. All right, so up in the annotation portion of the drawing file, I'm going to create a balloon. And the balloons, you'll notice that if I touch the edge, it gives me an arrowhead. And then I'm going to drag away, left click to place a number. Okay, it's going to number these automatically based on the order that they were brought in, okay, into the assembly file. You'll also notice that if I hover over the face and put in a balloon, you can see that there's a difference in what the arrowheads do. If you select an edge, it gives you an arrowhead. If you select a face, it'll give you a dot. Okay, that is per standard. So I'm going to finish. I'll erase one of these in a moment. But I'm going to continue on by selecting the face here. Selecting, I'll change that in a moment. That one should have been an edge rather than a face. Do face here. Do the face there. And finally do the face there. Okay, so I'm going to right click to finish. Green check out of balloon. And now I can go back in, choose whatever balloon I want, hit delete, and then also select those little endpoints and make any readjustments if I need to. So this automatically changed from a dot to an arrowhead. And I have all my parts labeled. The last part is to be able to create a table. Okay, so I'm going to go to tables, and I want to create a bill of materials. So I'm going to select bill of materials, and then it gives me a little warning saying select the drawing view to specify the model for creating the bill of materials. So I'm going to left click on this view. Okay, once I do that, it gives me a whole bunch of options. I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just going to green check, and attached to my mouse when I move over my view will be a bill of materials. So I'm going to bring it up until it snaps to the top line. Left click to place it. Okay. You'll see that the item numbers, item number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, match what these are. So item number 1 is my mount plate. Item number 1, I have it labeled as part 02, and the description is a mount plate. All of that automatically comes in. The side plate, you'll notice it automatically recognizes that there are 2 of those. Okay. Now, anything that's missing in an actual drawing, I would probably still like to include materials. All right. So we can right-click in the headers, and we could insert a column to the right or to the left. I'm going to throw it into the right. We do have some options for custom property names or some other information. And it's looking at a lot of these automated links. Much of that we have, we don't really have defined. So I'm going to try to just put in there, just left click out of it, double click in the cell. Make sure I do it in all caps. And put in materials. Okay, at that point I can readjust my bill of materials. And then this I could fill in automatically by double left clicking into the cell. And whatever material was made for that part, I can do that. Same thing with the column headers, like letter B. I want to make sure that this is center justified. Make sure that everything is nice and neat. And just like using Excel, we can modify some of the information here so that we don't take up as much space with all of this information. Okay. After you complete this, this is what you're going to print out. You'll realize that your drawing number and caster assembly from the description of your assembly file is saved in the title block. This is what you're going to print out for an exploded assembly and assembly file.